Day after day, week after week, sanctioned goods are still flowing into Russia. We know we saw it and filmed it ourselves in Georgia as British-made Range Rovers passed into the country this way. Cars, though, are just the start of it. It's also components used on the battlefield, raising the question, what is the government doing to stop the flow and enforce the rules? There's scant information online about who's actually broken these rules, so we sent a Freedom of Information request to ask HM Revenue and Customs, the department enforcing trade sanctions, how many fines there have been and who's been charged.
So we waited for 6 weeks and we got this letter. It's got all sorts of detail in it, but let me give you some of the highlights. First of all, how many fines have there actually been since the imposition of these sanctions? The short answer is 6. There have been 6 fines, ranging all the way from this one, £1,000 in August 2022, to this one for £1 million August of the next year, raising a question, who is actually paying these fines? We asked that question and we got an answer. The answer is, we're not going to tell you. And why are they not going to tell us? Because HMRC do not consider that disclosing the company name would drive compliance, promote voluntary disclosure, or be proportionate. But if you look at the UK compared with other countries around the world, we are relatively low in terms of the number of fines. Okay, so this is the UK. The light blue bit is HMRC fines, trade fines. The dark blue bit is other fines. We're relatively low compared with other countries in Europe. Not the lowest, but relatively low. But it does beg a question, are there more to come? How many investigations are we actually carrying out right now? Raising that question, we got the answer, we're not going to tell you. They're not going to tell us because the number of current investigations which may involve these sanctions, regardless of the eventual outcome, is not centrally recorded. They don't actually know. And to find out the answer to that would apparently involve too much work. It would involve too much time. We have therefore refused your request, which is all a little odd.
If you're trying to organise an organisation like HMRC in terms of resourcing and all the rest of it, you would think that they might know how many investigations they have ongoing and how to staff all of those. So it's.
Are you surprised?
I'm surprised that they didn't have that number to hand. Other government bodies operating in this area, like the Office of Financial Sanctions Implementation, for example, they include that number in their annual reports, just as a matter of course.
And while HMRC grant privacy to anyone who breaks the rules, in many other countries, including the US, it's a different story.
The US loves to name and shame. It's actually done quite a lot in further enforcing compliance, both within the United States and globally. Because once you see, you've got a company, let's say they're placed on this, there's an announcement they've been fined, or they're placed on the specially designated nationals list, all the other companies in their industry are now calling around going, hey, what am I next?
In other words, naming and shaming those who break sanctions often makes the rules more effective. We don't do that in the UK. Indeed, some would say the authorities enforcing the sanctions aren't being tough enough, and that the fact they can't even tell us how many cases they're investigating tells you all you need to know. Ed Conway, Sky News.